It's not Wednesday and I'm here. It's very exciting. So I'm here today because it's not about writing, so it's not going to be a writing Wednesday. I am here to talk about reading, so that could be reading. Well, so you don't have the answers on a postcard, please. I'm here talking about books. It's something I wanted to do a bit more of on this channel as well as the writing, talk about reading. Obviously I'm a literature student, and as a writer, a complete and utter lover of all written words. Some more than others, admittedly. But nevertheless, massive fan of reading. I already have blogged book reviews quite a few times. So there were quite a few on there if ever you wanted to go and have a look. I'll link my written blog below, but I thought that I'd start vlogging about them as well, because I love books, I love talking about books, and I love watching book vlogs. I watch loads of them, so yeah, it seemed like a good time to kind of start talking to you myself. Part of why I really wanted to start this now is because this week in the reading world on Twitter is #diversathon. This has all come about because there was this big hoo-ha on Twitter, which I totally missed, where somebody said that diversity didn't need to exist anymore because we are already diverse, so we don't even need to talk about it anymore. Aside from the fact that that's clearly not true. A group of book bloggers got together and decided that rather than getting into some weird Twitter rant about it all, they were just going to kind of do something positive about it. So they decided to set up Diversathon, which is all this week, and it's all about reading things that are diverse to what you would ordinarily read. So it's basically all about, using reading to kind of really enlighten yourself on kind of other people's situations, and which is, one of the best things about reading, the fact that you can kind of sink into somebody else's shoes and just see and get a feel for what it might be like to live in a very different way. I'll link the sort of announcement of Diversathon below, because she explains it a lot better than I do. What I did think that I would do then is maybe recommend to you guys a few books that I've read that I think would fit really, really well into this category, and that would maybe inspire you to maybe try one of these books, or to actively start thinking about reading something that's just, quite different to what you would ordinarily read. So the first book that I'm going to recommend is this, Men We Reaped by Jesmyn Ward. It's so good, but it is sad. I'll warn you now, it is sad. Tissues at the ready when you read this book. It's a memoir, but it's done kind of slightly differently. The whole book basically focuses on 5 men that she's known who have all died very young, black men who have all died very young, basically just due to the circumstances that they live within. One of the men that died is her brother, one is a boyfriend, and the other's a friend. She also talks a lot about her relationship with her father and just what it's like to grow up in such poverty and squalor as a black American man, and just the way that the system then, sort of continues to perpetrate the same qualities generation after generation after generation. And it's not written from a oh my gosh, woe is me, our life is so tough kind of way. It is just this is what happened, this is the man that I knew, and these were the things that he got wrong, and this was the way that his life turned out. And it's beautifully written. She actually teaches creative writing at the University of Michigan in America, and you can kind of tell it's written. It's just the way it's structured, and the sentences are so beautiful, and it really hits right in the core. So I'd never read a book like this before this one, and it was recommended to me by a tutor at university who studies South American literature. And when he told me about it, I thought, oh my god, I've got to read that book, and I'm just so pleased I did. It's a fantastic book. The next book I'm going to recommend is Carol by Patricia Hingsmith. This is the only one that I haven't actually read. I need to read it this year for university, which is why I have it, but I haven't actually read it yet. But in this book, the protagonist is a lesbian, and I don't actually think I've ever read any literature based on a lesbian relationship. I mean, obviously, on the one hand, it's going to be no different to a heterosexual relationship, but it'll be really interesting. It's set in the 1950s, and I do know from the back, and because I have seen the film, that, you know, people were still very, 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 very hidden if they weren't, you know, just normal. That's the point of this. There is no normal. If you weren't just a straight person, then you were out of the norm and you had to hide that. And it's about the relationship with family members as a result of her being a lesbian. And yeah, it was, the film was slow, very slow. But even when I was watching it, I was like, I can see that this would work better as a book. So even though I wasn't a massive fan of the film, even though it has Kate Blanchett and Rooney Mara in it, both of whom I love, I'm actually still really looking forward to reading the book because I think it will be really, really interesting. And I actually think the storyline is going to work a lot better as a book. Okay, my next book is A Place Called Winter by Patrick Gale. I absolutely love this book and I've already blogged about it, so I won't go on about it too much because you can read the blog. But after the blog, a friend of mine bought it and absolutely hated it. So I'm always a bit dubious now recommending it to people. And I can see why she didn't like it. She's more of a like thriller, chick lit, fast paced, page turners, which this isn't. It is a slow burner. I almost feel like it's kind of quite old fashioned in the way that it's written, you know. It is just a story that kind of goes from the beginning to the end. It's diverse though because in the opening scenes, the protagonist is in a mental institute. And it is set in the 1800s, and when you start delving into why he's in, he then sort of looks back over his life, and when you start delving into why he's in the mental institute, it kind of unearths a lot of social prejudices that have led to him being there. So I kind of don't want to say anything more about it because I don't want to ruin the story, but it is highly moving. It is so beautifully written, and it just will really, really just change the ways that I looked at a lot of colonising. That's another way where it's really interesting actually, because it's about colonisation, I can say it, but about the colonisation in Canada, which again, I didn't, when I was reading it, I thought, oh, I don't think I've ever read about how the sort of colonisation in Canada happened, and with people being asked to go out there to start reaping the land and stuff, which obviously, well, I feel like you hear quite a lot about with Australia, but I hadn't really heard about it with Canada. And it's about that as well, this kind of, you know, displacement and, you know, having to move to foreign lands and why he moved there, and how, you know, how his life was kind of uprooted because he didn't fit into the social norms. So so yeah, definitely I recommend this one, A Place Called Winter. Okay, so my last book, and it is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. She is a literature teacher in America, and she's African American, and she basically got really fed up with people kind of making these sweeping statements about slavery and how, like, you know, why didn't the slaves just revolt? Why didn't they just say no? And she was trying to explain to her students that when you're in a sort of social conditioning like they would have been, it's just not that easy. So she wrote this novel. She's written a lot of novels. This is, you know, but this was the reason she wrote this novel. It was to kind of give an example of what would you really do if you here and now were transported back into that situation. What would you really do? Would you really, you know, start a revolution, or would you just try and survive? So it's a really, really interesting look. It's really clever how she's done it, and also the woman who is set in our time, she works for like minimum wage. She doesn't have a proper contract. She doesn't have health insurance. Like, and yeah, it just kind of really makes you contemplate, like, you know, the way that people live now as well. Like, it's not just about black slavery. It mirrors a lot of the social situations that people still find themselves in today. So it makes you think, like, it really, really makes you think, you know, about how we interact, how we treat each other now, and how different it is, if at all. if nothing else, I hope it's just made you want to kind of maybe think about reading something a little bit more diverse. I'm going to link below, as I said, the announcement video, as well as all the kind of Twitter links and everything. So if you want to join in the conversation about diversity and diversity in literature, you can do so by following there. And I will see you on Wednesday. Bye.